Hear me fine?
Welcome everyone to episode 83 of The Game Changers. I'm your host Carla, and tonight I'm bringing the heat with none other than Brett Lanier. His knowledge and insights are sure to elevate our conversation as I dig into the game behind the game. Remind me because I need to ask you how you pronounce your last name.
No, it was perfect.
I'm, I'm sure I butchered it right now.
No, it was perfect. Yeah.
A huge shout out to the incredible TSA team for backing this mission and amplifying voices and sparking ideas. This platform exists because of visionaries like them and listeners like you. Whether you're here for fantasy football gold or simply love stories that shift perspective, you're in the right place. The Game Changers is more than a podcast, it's a movement. Let's kick things off by getting to know our guest a little better. Who is Brett Lanier? Sports fan, veteran, and tech trailblazer. Brett is a proud dad of four from Baltimore, Maryland, with a seriously cool backstory. He's a retired U.S. Army officer and used to fly Black Hawk helicopters. These days, he's flying high in the sports tech world as a co founder and CEO of Better Vision, a mobile app that helps fans keep track of all their fantasy sports, daily fantasy, and sports betting accounts in one place. It's all about making the game more fun and making sure you never miss out on the best odds. Beyond innovation, Brett is a passionate advocate for the 85 million fantasy sports players and sports bettors across the US and Canada. As a member of the board of directors of the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association, he champions the interest of players, companies, and communities that fuel this dynamic industry. His leadership bridges technology, entertainment, and advocacy, making him a true game changer in every sense. Brett, welcome to the show tonight. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate that. So tell me how you pronounce your last name because I'm sure I butchered it.
No, it was great. So I say Lanier, like Luhnear, kind of Lanier.
Everybody was telling me that.
But
Say Lanier.
French it would be Lanier. And when I lived in Germany, we traveled to France sometimes. I was like checking in the hotel. I'd be like, reservation for Monsieur Lanier. And my friends would be like,
Yes.
Lanier, what is that?
I love it. So I'm still like reminding you with the French, like stuff, which is really good, really good. So let's talk a little bit about your childhood and early influences. So what's the earliest memory that shaped your sense of adventure or risk taking?
Um, my absolute earliest memory period is when I was in, I think it was kindergarten. It was watching the Challenger shuttle take off, and like they in all schools across the country they rolled in the TVs and we watched the shuttle take off because the teacher was on board, and then it exploded, and we were all like, "Oh my god, what just happened?" And then all I remember is they sent us all home for the day, and I think I watched Michael Jackson's Thriller music video for the first time, and that was
Wow.
it. Like I saw the Challenger blow up. I watched Michael Jackson Thriller, and like that's the earliest memory I remember. So I don't know if that shaped my sense of adventure, but like the pioneering, wanting to explore, do things exciting, maybe a little bit. Maybe it put a damper on it a little. I don't know.
That's awesome. I love that. Who was your role model growing up, and how did they influence your career choices?
Oh man. Originally, it was probably like my dad and Michael Jordan, and Larry Bird. I loved basketball. My dad was a really good basketball player, played in college. Was so I used to go to the gym with him when I was, preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, and like watched the guys play, and eventually they started letting me play with them. So he was kind of my hero for a while, and then I loved Jordan and Bird. Then later, after my parents divorced, my stepfather stepped in and took on 3 kids when he was like 26 years old and a ton of debt, and um, he was amazing. Couldn't have been a better stepfather. And he was actually a Navy veteran, and so I think that kind of shaped me thinking maybe both my values and what I might want to do for a career. And then probably some coaches had some big influence, but yeah, those were probably the biggest.
I love that. I love the story. So, was there a moment in your childhood when you first saw yourself in a leadership role?
Um, Probably not until high school. In probably my sophomore year, started being like the captain of like JV teams, right? Like
Yes.
I wasn't quite good enough. I played basketball 4 years, but my sophomore year wasn't quite good enough to make the varsity, and so was like the best player on the JV team. So kind of was de facto captain, and that was kind of my first leadership experience. And then from there on out, kind of ended up being captains of the other teams that I played on juniors and senior years.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, growing up in Baltimore, how did it impact your work ethic and outlook on life?
Um, I think I was out in the suburbs back then, in a planned community called Columbia, about halfway between Baltimore and DC, and um, it was a amazing place, probably the best place in the world to raise kids. Very diverse, and was one of the first places in the country where you could have like um, interracial marriages and gay marriages, and all types of accepting kind of things. Um, and so it was pretty middle class ish, but there was also a lot of kind of people from um, tougher backgrounds also there. And
Yes.
it, I think, both after the divorce, when we were struggling financially a little more, and playing sports with all these other guys that were, um, you know, some of the best players on our teams were from some of the more struggling backgrounds. Um, saw like how hard you had to work, and um, just kind of developed a little bit of that grit. And I think also not being the most athletic, I was pretty athletic, but I had to work harder than a lot of other guys to be good. Um, Kind of, I think that sports probably shaped my work ethic more than anything until I got to West Point.
I love that. So you said that your stepdad was
Mhm.
in the army and he kind of motivated you to join the army. So how did your perception of leadership evolve there? And can you share a defining moment from your Black Hawk pilot days that taught you resilience?
Yeah. So yeah, stepfather was in the Navy. I ended up joining the Army. I originally thought I wanted to be in the Navy, both because of him, and I loved the movie Top Gun growing up, and so I wanted to go be a fighter pilot.
Nice.
Um, and then he didn't really push me to go into the military, but him and my mom both kind of sat me down sophomore and junior year of high school and said, we don't have any money, so we want you to go to college, but or you have to either get a scholarship and go to college or join the military. And then I kind of did a little bit of both. Ended up going to West Point. So thought I would go to the Naval Academy. A lot of things happened, changed, ended up going to West Point instead. So that was his kind of influence, and he helped prepare me once I did decide that I was going and I got accepted, about little things, how to shine shoes and how to march and do all the facing movements and stuff that made my life a little bit easier when I got there.
Yeah.
But that's probably what shaped that the most. A resilient story as a pilot for resilience. Oh, there's a lot of crazy stories. Some of them are long. I'm trying to think of a short version. I mean, when I was right out of flight school, we ended up going to Iraq when the war started in 2003. So,
so you might know some words in Arabic then.
Yeah, very little. As a pilot, I didn't walk the ground and interact with the people as much as most of my friends and peers did that were not pilots. So I know, and the most common one we say all the time is inshallah. Is kind of all the time.
Inshallah. Yeah.
Like you try to make a deal, they be like, inshallah. Like, no. Like, it became a part of my life of like, yeah, that's a great way to think about life. Like, yeah, I mean, we can, very similar in Western culture. You'll hear like, you make plans and God laughs, right? Like,
and God will, yeah. And God willing, inshallah.
Yeah, we can make this plan, but if God wills it, it'll happen.
Yes.
Otherwise, don't remember much else. I do probably maybe 8 or 10 phrases.
I'll teach you at the expo.
Yeah. We'll do a refresher course. There were a lot of times. So I showed up in like May of 2003, and we ended up being there for 15 months, and we were in Baghdad. And there were. At that time, the main conflict was between us and Saddam loyalists, right? Like, so the Ba'ath Party, the Republican Guard that kind of went and tried to keep fighting against these invaders. From their perspective, I understand. And so we were still getting shot at every once in a while by them, as we were trying to round up and find Saddam and his sons and other leaders that were causing trouble. And so there was just a lot of it was a hard time. As a 25-year-old, I had 25 people I was in charge of, 10 pilots and 15 crew chiefs, and they had families and wife and kids back home, and they were worried about dying every day. And like, you're trying to manage the schedule and keep them safe. And, it was stressful. So I think I've got some longer stories that we can tell over some beers, but I think for the short podcast we got now, just a lot of events over that year, developed a lot of grit and resilience.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. I just want to share today my prayers as well, and I do believe everybody heard about the shooting that happened in Fort Stewart.
Today,
And 5 soldiers lost their life. So may they rest in peace, and hopefully that like war and the shooting and everything would stop at some point, and we can all live in peace, because we are in crazy time right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That was tough today.
Yeah, it is. So how did you balance being a father of 4 with demanding deployment schedule?
So luckily I didn't have my kids until most of my deployments were over. So I did, as a platoon leader, right out of flight school, I did that 15-month deployment in Baghdad in 03-04, and then I went back again as a company commander in 07-08 during the surge, and that was in Tikrit, Iraq, another 15 months. But both of those times I was single. So my mom was worried about me, my friends were worried about me, but I didn't have to like worry about my wife and kids back home. And I I can't imagine. Like at the time, there were times I kind of struggled and didn't understand the emotions that some of the married guys were feeling, and it was like, yeah, you got somebody back home that loves you, like they're doing fine. And but now, like I can't imagine having my kids and wife back home and them worried about me and me worried about them, and missing that year of their life, which when they're kids is such a big, like they grow so much in a year. It's amazing. So
It is.
I did all of my kind of deployments were once I was married were shorter 2 to 3 week trips to the Middle East when we were in the fight against ISIS in 2017 to 2019. So luckily nothing long term
Yes.
when I was married. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Lebanon originally, so you know that I'm closer to where you were.
Hmm.
So I'm a war child, so I know everything about war, and I don't enjoy 1 second of it. So
Yeah.
I do feel what you went through, and it's crazy. I'm glad you're home, and my friend just came home as well a couple weeks ago. So his name is Jonathan. He's a soldier as well. So
Yeah, awesome.
hopefully all our soldiers will be back at some point home with their families.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which skills from your army training translate directly to running a tech startup?
I think um what really stands out the most is the decision making, just general leadership stuff, right? So
Yes.
decision making in uncertainty, right? As a startup, there's a lot of times where like we don't know what we should do. We don't have all the right information. We don't have, you know, all what may happen in this next couple months or whatever. And we have to make a decision with what we have.
Yes.
And I think being able to, or being comfortable with making those decisions under uncertainty, and just, hey, we got 80%, that's good enough, let's go, and we'll adjust off it. That's what we do a lot in the army. You make a plan, and then you start executing, and then the enemy gets a decision, they have some input too, and you have to adjust off that plan. Or maybe what you thought was going to happen doesn't happen at all, and you have to adjust. So being flexible, and being able to adjust once things change, I think
Yes.
was probably one of the biggest things. Um, Other than that, I think probably setting the culture. So we've got a very small team, but even when we brought in 1099 contractors or interns over the summer and things like that, we try to focus very much on the culture,
Yes.
and making them want to feel a part of the team and all that kind of stuff. So I think those are probably the main things so far.
So, what's one misconception about helicopter pilots that you would love to debunk?
um, I don't know. Um, there's I don't know if I can debunk it. I could say it's maybe not true for everyone, but there definitely are some crazy bold, they're risk takers, um, I, which is true. I mean, like, but maybe not as much as you might think, I guess is the thing that I would want to push back on is,
Yeah.
there's a saying, there's old pilots and there's bold pilots. They're not old pilots, so early on we're all out there crazy, think we're indestructible, and
Yeah.
want to just be out there yanking and banking is what we call it, and going fast and flying low and doing crazy things. And then as we have some experience, and we've had many times that you might have almost died, or you've seen someone else die, unfortunately,
Yeah.
a very small community, and there aren't any ejector seats on a helicopter, so typically if there's a crash, everyone dies. You see one or two people do that, and all of a sudden you start to evaluate things a little differently. And so the risks become much more calculated,
True.
as you get more experience and get a little older. So
Yeah. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your pre-deployment self?
Oh, there's so many things. Other than like financial decisions of like invest in this company, um, it
Yeah,
yeah, it'd be like, hey, buy Bitcoin, all of it early, or Amazon, Facebook, it would be that that's so tough. Probably to spend more time with my mentor. Um,
yeah,
my battalion commander was a very strong personality, and he was a bit of a hard ass, and came from the special operations community, and spent most of his career there, and drove the battalion very hard, and trained us hard, and had very high expectations. And he and I had very different leadership styles,
yeah.
um, and we butted heads a lot. Um, and um, but there was mutual respect that developed,
Of
and
course.
um, I wish I would have spent more time informally just picking his brain. I think after my last year with him, we spent almost 3 years together. My first 2 years, it was almost all just like formal conversations, and or him kind of chewing my ass for something he disagreed with. Um, the last year, we started spending a lot more time, like, getting midnight chow and just hanging out and not talking operations and stuff, and
Yeah,
him advising me on my career and life and things like that. I wish I would have started that earlier. I think it would have, shaped my first command a little bit differently, and maybe changed some things in my life. We'll see.
I love that. So let's transition a little bit to the civilian life and entrepreneurship that you had. So, how did you identify sports tech as your ideal post-military industry?
Um, I don't I had an idea,
Yeah,
during COVID, because I was living in Illinois. I was based in Chicago for my last, assignment in the Army, kinda helping stand up the marketing office there. And so I'd been playing fantasy for years. I was in a bunch of leagues. I was on, I think, 3 different apps. I started playing daily fantasy, a few years before that, so I had a couple apps for that. And then when sports betting got legalized in Illinois, it was, deposit $100, get $500 in free bets. I'm like, I love free money. So I signed up for all of them, and I started making a lot of bets, $5 and $10 bets. And all of a sudden, I had 10 apps when I'm trying to watch. So I had the idea for an aggregation app, but didn't know how to build it, didn't know anything really about it. Um, so when I was retiring, my plan was to go be like a management consultant. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like,
yeah,
I don't want to go get a real job. Like all I've ever done is hey Iggy, um is be in the military. I don't know like what I want to do for my real job, my grown up job, my second career, the next chapter, whatever, however you want to think about it. So I was leaning towards consulting just from my MBA background and
yes,
data analytics. What I did in the second half of my Army career was kind of data analytics stuff. Um, but that idea was kind of like in the back of my head. I'm like, I think there's something there. Maybe I should try that. And so we moved to Maryland. We bought a house based on the thought that I was going to go get this high paying job, which has made things a little more financially difficult. um, and then, yeah, the salary was much less. So then, couldn't get away from it. It was just this thing eating at the
yeah,
back of my brain when I was going to prep for the interviews, and I was like, this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to go and like it was going to be because I'm in DC, the DC area. The management consulting jobs were all defense contracting, so I'd be advising, back to the government, and I was like,
Yeah.
they don't they don't do the most efficient things. You know, it's going to be frustrating. I kind of have this idea. Let me explore it. Talked to a buddy of mine who happened to be in the industry, and he was like, "Yeah, it's a great idea. Can I come build it with you?" And so that's kind of how we decided. My co-founder kind of gave me the nudge that I needed to explore it, and then asked my wife, the final boss,
Of course.
"What do you think about this? What do you think about this idea of me doing this thing? It means we get no salary for a couple years, like." She's like, "Can we pay for the house with your retirement?" I was like, "We can pay our bills. It's gonna be tight." So like, go for it. I was like, awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that she supported you. That's really amazing. And we need support from our loved ones. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, founding Better Vision, what gap in the market did you spot that most entrepreneurs missed?
I think the main thing is that the sports bettors and fantasy players, it's a huge Venn diagram with a lot of overlap, right? Like
Yeah.
most sports bettors in the US had the same user journey that I had, where they grew up playing fantasy. Once they were in a lot of, multiple leagues or had played for multiple years, they started to think, oh, I read a lot of articles, I listen to podcasts, whatever they do. I think I know a lot about this. Let me put some money on it. And they
Yeah.
start playing daily fantasy. And they're like, oh yeah, I think I'm smarter than other people. I'm gonna win these contests. And that kind of is the soft, launch into sports betting. And you're like, oh, I'm watching every single game because I've got players in all the games, or I've got
True.
opponents who have it. And so you're watching all the games, and you're like, I think I have a good idea of what's going to happen because I have an idea of what fantasy player is going to be good. So I think I know the way this game's going to go. And you're tracking all the information. So you're like, oh, I think I can decide, who's going to win this game or what the score is going to be, whatever. And so people start putting a little bit of money on the game. And most people along that user journey don't stop doing the other activities. And so
Yeah.
what I saw was it was kind of like three silos, right? Like there was fantasy, and there's great aggregation, like Fantasy Pros. I'm on, they're kind of a competitor of ours, but like I use them all the time, and they've got a great product. Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life has a good product. It's got some aggregation of your fantasy teams and stuff like that. There's probably some others out there as well.
Yeah.
And there's like daily fantasy. So even if a company has a fantasy app and a daily fantasy app, they're two separate apps. And then there's sports betting, and then there's great bet tracking companies. Like the two biggest ones are probably BetSperts and Action Network, or then Pickett, Chalkboard. There's others. But all of them were so focused on bet tracking. I'm like, okay, now I have to have a couple of apps just to track all my stuff. Like, it's all these fans, they're doing all this. Why not bring it all into one place to make their life easier? I think
Yeah.
that was the biggest miss that I still don't understand why others haven't put that all
Thought of
together.
it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Why did you choose a unified account tracking approach over building a new betting engine?
Probably one is that I don't have the technical chops to build that new betting engine. And that would and it would also be a lot more expensive, right?
Yeah.
Both the tech talent, the data science people that you'd have to bring in. I've got a little bit of that background, but not enough to really run our own kind of book or whatever. And then the licenses are incredibly expensive, so it's very difficult to enter. There's a lot of barriers to entry for a startup in that space.
Yeah.
So this was more, we saw the potential of what the US betting market could be, and we saw that this was kind of a picks and shovels play. Like, they talk about like the California gold rush or last gold rush, the people that got rich weren't the people that were out there mining. It was the people
Yeah.
selling picks and shovels to the people that were going out and mining, right? Because those people that were mining like might get super rich, or there was tons of people that were um, digging and finding nothing. But the people that sold them the picks and shovels, like they made money either way. So that was, what we saw is this is no matter what company does well, FanDuel, DraftKings, Underdog, Prize Picks, whoever it is, like this helps everybody and all the users, which is who we were, which is why we wanted to help those people. Hopefully, we just help those people make their lives easier. So that's probably why we focus there.
So, how did you assemble your founding team, and what complementary skills were you looking for?
So the original founding team was just me and Jeff Doyle. And he was a guy that I knew from business school. I knew him from Philadelphia. His wife was in my cohort in business school, and he was a management consultant, and his client was in Philadelphia. So he was there hanging out all the time, and we hung out and watched sports together. And then started playing fantasy football together, and then stayed in those leagues for 10 years. And when I moved to Chicago, him and his wife were living there in Chicago. So them and two other families were kind of our little social bubble when we first showed up. And then when COVID happened, they were literally our little COVID bubble of families. We all had kids about the same age. So, we would get together every once in a while. And he had moved into the sports tech space, right? Like he had always wanted to work in sports. He was in his late 30s and was like, look, if I don't do it now, it's never going to happen. So he quit his job. Again, his wife was very supportive, and he quit his job, went back and got his master's degree at Northwestern in sports administration, data analytics, and thought he would go and use his like management consulting background and his business background and the data analytics background to go work for one of those Chicago sports teams, Bulls, Bears, Cubs, White Sox, whoever. But then while he was in grad school is when PASPA was repealed. So he wrote his master's thesis on the future of sports betting in the US and how he thought it would be peer-to-peer as opposed to betting against the house. And there were two founders from Harvard Business School that were building a company called Wager, which was the first peer-to-peer sports betting company. And they found him, I guess, somehow through his master's thesis or through his research. He found them. I can't remember how they came together. And they basically brought him onto their company to help them kind of build and launch Wager. And so I kind of was living vicariously through him and was like, that's so cool. One, you work in sports. Two, it's sports betting. Three, it's a startup. This is amazing. Like, that's so cool. So that probably influenced, again, when that seed was planted in the back of my mind of like, oh, I wish I could do that to live Jeff's life.
Interesting.
He was the only person I knew. Like, I didn't know I needed a tech co-founder, really. I had the idea. I had some business background. I had analytics background, but I didn't have the person to build it. But I also didn't have any of those people in my network. So I also didn't have many people in the sports background, sports business background in my network. So he was one of the only ones. So I reached out to him, was like, hey, you're kind of in the space. You're at a startup. What do you think? And when he was like, it's great. I want to help you build it. I was like, yes, you have some experience.
That's
Come
awesome.
on. What we were missing for a long time was the tech co-founder.
Yes.
Eventually, we recruited the lead engineer from Wager. They got acquired by Yahoo in May of 23. And so we basically reach out. Jeff had a good relationship with their lead engineer, and we asked him to come work with us. So weren't able to get him full time. He can demand like $500,000 a year as a salary, and we can't afford that. So like he's very good at what he does. So we got him working just for equity, but we're not getting 40 hours a week out of him. So he's helped us build the product. He's been amazing. I love him, Steven. But could have used him full time early on. That was the founding team, really.
That's awesome. So how many years have been you've been working on Better Vision?
3.5. So I retired in the fall of 21. Jeff and I talked in September. Both of us got the approval from our wives to go ahead and start. We formed the company in October 15th, 2021 officially. And then spent a couple months doing market research. That's when we discovered the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. Went to our first conference in Vegas that February.
Nice.
After that conference, started being like, okay, I think this is something we should build. Started raising a family and friends round, hired a dev shop to help us build it, and then pitched at the elevator pitch competition that summer at the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. Won that, and that was kind of like where we started getting partners on board. And then thought we were going to launch the app that fall. Didn't realize that the legal approval process was much longer than we anticipated. We finished the app in August, or the MVP version, and put out a press release that it was going to be ready for week 1 for the NFL. Submitted it to Apple for approval, and 4 months later, Apple approved it. And so at that point, like, it was the fantasy playoffs. We basically missed fantasy season. There was like a month and a half NFL season left, and then it was a grind to try to get to survive until next football season. Yeah. So
considering everything, you think I would think this is like your really like first year for Better Vision.
I feel like this is the first year that we are going to football season with
From the beginning.
a app that's ready. And we've got right now 8 fantasy sites on the platform. Almost all the major ones. Still missing CBS Sports. We're in some talks with them, but like ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, My Fantasy League, Real Time Fantasy Sports, Fantrax, FFPC, and NFC. For daily, it's Fliff, Underdog, and Prize Picks, and then 13 sports books cover like 97% of the used sports betting market. So I feel like we've got all the partners on board. If you have a account, we probably have it on the app. We finally have a Android version as well. We originally were iOS only, so now we have iOS and Android. We've got a lot of we've met a lot of people in the industry now and are friends with them, and I think people are like, yeah, we'll help you. Yeah, we'll help you, get invited on podcasts and things like that. So I feel like this is the first season that we're ready to kind of grow and take off. So looking forward to it.
Listen, you can sponsor me and I can help you grow it too.
Yeah, I would love it. We did the sponsorship the sports affiliation after the expo in 2023. And so that was literally our first year that we actually had the app live. And then last year we weren't able to, as things were tight. But yeah, definitely want to have a conversation with you guys again. Yep.
I have 2 podcasts and I can get it going.
Yeah,
I can.
We're together.
So tell me, what's the story behind the name of Better Vision?
I was trying to just figure out, like, what do we call this thing? Like, it's a dashboard is what it comes down to. It the original idea was just having a single place to see everything.
Yes.
And so I was like, dashboard, windshield. I was trying to think of like, what do you command center. In the military, it'd be like we have like you walk into a room, 30 different screens with all the like UAV feeds and maps with where everybody is and all that kind of stuff. I was like, it's command center, but I'm like, but it's for fantasy and betting, and I'm like, a place to see everything in one place. I was like, a place to see everything better vision, but like betters, like sports betters. And so that's what I came up with. I pitched it to my family. My mom was like, I don't get it. And I was like, Mom, people that bet on sports are called betters. She's like, you're spelling better wrong. I'm like, no, Mom, this is how you spell a person that bets on sports. She's like, I don't think people are gonna get that. And I'm like, I think my audience will. Like, my mom's might not, but
I love your mom.
Yeah. And with Jeff, when I pitched Jeff on it, he's like, "What are you gonna call this thing?" And I was like,
Yeah.
better vision? He's like, oh, I like that. I was like, so we ran with it, and we haven't.
Better. Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love the name. That's really catchy. I really like it. And yeah, you were talking about military and everything. My dad was in a high ranked military, so I lived with all of this too. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, at what point did you realize Better Vision could scale nationally or internationally?
I think when I realized that it could take off was after we won the FSGA pitch competition. That
Oh,
was up to that point, like, my mom thought it was a good idea, my friends thought it was a good idea, but, like, I had no idea if this would actually work or
yeah,
if we would ever be able to get the partners on board, because the hard part was, how do we get customers if we don't have the apps that they use? And how do we get these billion-dollar companies to give us access to their data if we don't have any users? So we are like, cold start problem, chicken or egg, like,
yeah,
how do we get this started? And winning that pitch competition, which is you go and you pitch the idea in front of 250 or so people, um, and it's audience vote. There's no judges. It's just the CEOs and VPs and directors and some content creators that are all in this industry say, "Hey, I think this is a good idea." And when they kind of validated us and said, wow, yeah, of course. Like, this has happened. It's happened in travel. It's happened in finance. Like, of course, it's going to happen in this industry. We should have an aggregation app. Um, that was, I think, when I was like, oh, maybe there's something here.
yeah.
I don't know about internationally yet. We'll see. But yeah, nationally, I think we can grow.
I love that. I love it really. Like I really wish you the best in that. What's the most surprising feature request you've received?
Um, I don't know if I can't think of like the most surprising, but I can think of like the one of the best, most interesting requests I've received that, like, I hadn't already thought of.
Yes.
Um, I think I've thought of a lot. I've been playing this a long time. I had like a huge list of all these things I wanted to do. One of the best recommendations I got from someone was an automatic, and they're starting to have it in some other. This was like 3 years ago. Is the ability to like set essentially an ADP of players and like week to week so that when you had a person that was questionable or that was injured, it would automatically update your lineups across. This was from a guy that had over 500 lineups. He manages, I think, 200 something of them are dynasty teams, and then
Wow.
he has another like 100 something like redraft managed leagues. Then he's got a ridiculous number of leagues. So he's like, he
He
talks about
reminds me of Howard Bender.
talks about like spending 10 hours every Thursday, like before the game starts, like going through and setting all the lineups to make sure everything's good. And he's like, I wish there was a way across all my lineups I could just be like, here's the guys I like the most. And then if no matter who I have on all my benches, if someone's injured, it just takes the guys I like the most that week and automatically puts them in the lineup. I was like, oh, that's amazing. One, we would have to get right access to all of our partners, which we don't have yet.
Yeah.
Um, but like that would be a cool thing that you could do across all your leagues. So that's probably the one feature that I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Nice.
We won't be able to build that for a while, but putting it on
It
the
will
road.
happen soon. Yeah. So knowing that this is a new app and all, how do you ensure data privacy and compliance across different jurisdictions?
So when it comes to data privacy, the
Yes.
main things are like finance stuff and passwords, or in my mind.
Yes.
So we don't have any banking information, right? So we'll pull in what your balances are on the sports betting apps, but we don't have access to, and I don't want access to it, right? Like because it's a data security risk, I don't want to have any sensitive information because then I got to
True.
pay a lot of money to make sure it doesn't get breached, and all that kind of stuff. So we don't have any of your Venmo, PayPal, banking information, credit cards, anything like that. We have your balances and what bets you've made and that kind of stuff. And then for passwords, we actually don't store that either. So when you the way that you connect your accounts is you say, hey, I want to connect Yahoo, and you'll click the add Yahoo button, and what a thing pops up. It's called OAuth 2.0. It's like you've probably done it with banks, or if you've ever connected through Plaid or something like that with an external source. It's this web view that pops up, and you put in your username and password, and then you hit submit. That sends that information to the bank, but we don't ever see it or store it.
That's awesome.
And then the partner verifies that is correct. And if it is, then they send essentially a little token that comes back and gets stored on your device. And then every time that we request data, it sends that token. It's an authentication token to the partner, and that says, "Yep, this is Carla. Send her account information, what her new lineups are, whatever." And that's stored on your keychain in your phone. So like we don't even have it in our database. That's kind of the way we've approached that. It will change because this fall we are coming out with a subscription version, so there will be credit card information and all that kind of stuff. So that is going to change. But I think we'll go with one of our partners in the industry that kind of the industry standard for keeping that secure on their sites. And again, not my database.
True. That's really awesome to know too, because it's a new app and people wants to know how you prevent fraud or how you like keep their data intact, which is really good to know. So we were talking before we start our show about your son. So I'm going to talk about how do you see Gen Z engaging with sports betting compared to older generations?
I think that it's much more just in general, and there's going to be some huge stereotypes. But from what I've seen so far, it's a generation that grew up on their phones, right? They've had mobile devices since they were, probably depends on the parents probably, but like for my kids, when they were 6 or 7, they probably had a device in their hand. And when they reach middle school is when we got my sons their phones. My middle son, my second son, is starting 6th grade now, and we literally just got him a phone this summer. And I'm like, oh my god. But yeah, they are digital first. They're mobile first. They are used to immediate gratification, and that they expect everything to be available immediately, all their information. So I think they are going to, but shorter attention spans, right? Like he doesn't sit, he won't sit and watch a 3-hour football game, like one single football game.
Yeah.
Even we're huge Ravens fans. He is too. Even when the Ravens are playing, like if I tell him to sit and put his phone down and not also be on his phone at the same time, either Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever he's on, or Twitter, he can't do it. So there's a lot of, and the way he prefers to watch the games is Red Zone channel, quad boxes, or the YouTube quad boxes, seeing a lot of stuff, getting all that data, all that stimulation all the time.
Yeah.
And so they're live betting a lot more. They're like, I want to place this now, I want to track this, what's available. I feel like they are not as risk aware. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it. Like they take big risks, so they're doing a lot more parlays. Maybe that's not as financially literate. Maybe is just like hey, whatever. It's entertainment money. It's not like I'm going to put this $2 bet in to win $560. I'm not expecting it to win, but it's something that I can. Me and my friends, like they do it socially, and so my friends are following around on the bet. Maybe we each put $1 in, whatever. Like it's social. It's if we win, we post it on the chat. If it's a bad beat, we also post it on social. Like it's all social and immediate and not necessarily I'm here to win money. Um, and so I think sports betting companies love them.
I
um,
agree.
yeah. And I think the NFL and other leagues are going to love them because of how much they consume.
Yeah.
Um, it, to be determined how deeply, if it evolves and if they become kind of deep um, consumers as opposed to this kind of like surface level all the time.
Yeah. What role do traditional media companies play in the evolving fantasy sports ecosystem, in your opinion?
Hmm, I mean, one, they're the biggest employer, and so they provide a lot of jobs, and they have the biggest data sets. They've been doing this the longest. So they've got like years and years of data. They have the media contracts and all that stuff. For I'll focus kind of now from the better vision perspective, like from the small looking up. I think that to me, I kind of look at us in parallel to like the travel industry. They're the big airlines, right? So ESPN, CBS, Yahoo are the Delta and United, American, whatever. Um, and people are still going to fly them, right? Like they're the big companies. They've got the operators are there. They produce the content, but the more people get into the industry and they're doing more, they're going to find content creators they prefer to listen to or read their content.
Yes.
Um, and ideally, you'd be able to kind of pull the content in and personalize it. Right. So our goal is sometime in the future, hopefully next year, be able to now pull in the content created from each of those, kind of like a Bleacher Report, and personalize your feed based on the players that you have in your lineups, which ESPN and Yahoo and they do and CBS do currently for your lineups on those apps, but they don't. I don't get CBS articles about who I have in my sleeper lineups or ESPN articles on my MFL lineups. So being able to personalize all of it across all your different apps, I think is the long term view from those big media companies.
And how will live in-game betting change the way fans watch sports broadcasts?
Oh, man, I think um, it's going to continue to keep people engaged, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the biggest draw is for those blowouts. So when um, let's say uh, if the Bills are playing the Jets this year, right? And they're just beating them 21 to 3 at halftime. A lot of people are just going to turn that game off. But if you can be like, "Ooh, what do I think is going to happen in the second half? Are they going to pull Josh Allen? Can the Jets cover the second half spread, or do you think they're going to keep running the score up?" Like that excitement and that kind of like, "Ooh, I want to kind of predict the future," is going to keep people engaged and keep them from turning that game off. Where in the past, I would have just been like, "Up, this is over. Let me go do something else with my time." So I think live betting, um, as long as they can keep it um, up to date, the
Yes.
problem is like getting the odds and being able to process the trades essentially fast enough. Like the next play stuff, micro betting is the hardest.
Yeah.
That what's going to happen in the second half is one thing, but the like, what is the next play, run or pass? Being able to process that fast enough is going to be the thing that's really going to keep, especially that Gen Z that's so used to just feed me
Yeah.
stuff all the time. I think um, keeping them engaged.
So, what's the next frontier for daily fantasy sports beyond football and basketball?
Um, I think that a really cool thing that I heard about today for the first time is horse
Yeah,
racing. And
really.
I've never really been into horse racing. I'll bet the Derby and Preakness and the basic Triple Crown races. But a person I talked to earlier today is looking to meet some people in the fantasy industry. He's building a daily fantasy horse racing app. And I was like, "Oh, so you're getting fantasy scores based on did they win, place, show, what place they came in, you get different scores, and then you can basically combine different races instead of have to be like, "Oh, who's gonna win this race? I don't know." But if I have some idea, I think this guy's maybe gonna be in the top 5, but do I wanna bet $2 to win $2? I don't know. But if I can enter these contests where I combine a bunch of different races, um, or it being over a couple of weeks, I think that is something very interesting that people might get into.
Wow. I mean, I've heard about horse racing for a long time, but to have it like after football and basketball, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, what inspired you to join the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association board?
Um, I just loved the community, and wanted to help shape the decisions for and represent startups, right? Like I felt like the board was very well represented by the big billion-dollar companies. If
Yeah.
you look at it, it's, ESPN, CBS, Yahoo, Underdog, PrizePicks, DraftKings, FanDuel, the NFL, can't remember the USA Today company, uh, Advanced Local, sorry, Sports Radar, like all these big companies, Fantasy Alarm, um, but there wasn't a lot of like startup representation, and I truly think like the way we come up with new, cool, fun products is through startups, and I wanted that voice on the board, and I've always kinda held leadership positions. I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll run," but wasn't sure, and then, Rick Wolf, who I'd worked with on the
I
conference
know.
planning committee for the last 2 years, before the conference in February was like, "Brett, are you running for the board?" I was like, "No, I'm a startup, nobody really knows me, but I know some people, and I've got some good relationships. I know a lot of the board members, but, like, I don't think a lot of people know me. I don't think I'm gonna get elected." He's like, "No, you definitely need to run. We need, we need you on the board." So I was like, "Okay." I ran and surprisingly got elected. It was awesome.
That's awesome. And how do you ensure small operators' voices are heard alongside major corporations?
I think, um, it's deliberate processes. So there's a guy, he'll be at the expo. He's probably always at the expo. Um, Digger Turnbull is amazing at reaching out to new members, and introducing them to people in the industry. He's a connector, right? Like so he is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, and really tries to get to know everyone and find out what it is that you want to do, what it is you would help your company, and tries to connect you with those people. So through kind of Digger and me being inspired by him is like, okay, we need to make sure at Sport SBC, the Sports Betting Conference, or at the Fantasy Football Expo, and at FSGA, and throughout the year, trying to reach into these communities, let them know that we're here, possibly join. We have these resources that can help you. Let's introduce you to people that can help. I think that's probably one of the biggest ways, and then try to mentor them when it comes to doing the pitch competitions and talk to them about accelerators they can go into and how to pitch pitch VCs so that they can raise money and be successful. Like just trying to help them with all these struggles that I went through for 3.5 years and had no idea how to get through them. Is try to help them along that journey.
Wow. So, what's one piece of legislation that would revolutionize the industry if passed? See, that's my accent.
Yeah. Sorry, say that one more time. One piece of
So,
legislation.
what's one piece of legislation that would make a revolution in the industry if passed?
I think the one that would shake everything up. I don't think it will ever, or not in the near future, would happen.
Yeah,
Would be something allowing for nationalization of sports betting, right? So instead of it
yeah,
being federalized and at the state levels, would so things like removing the Wire Act. So we put a lot of laws in place to combat organized crime, right? Just for
true.
ever since there's been sporting competitions, there's been sporting betting on sports, right? For most of history, it's been run by um, organized crime. Like if you watch Peaky Blinders and horse racing in the in England back then, or even the word handicapping comes from like literally putting weights on horses to handicap them to slow them down to even out the odds and all that kind of stuff. Um, so the U.S. put in these things in place to prevent and to target organized crime. So like the Wire Act is one where you can't do things across state lines through telephone or now internet
Yeah,
when it comes to betting. Getting rid of that would allow some daily operators and some of the like peer-to-peer operators to potentially grow, because right now they're limited because they have to be pooled within that state, right? So sports betting companies, they can kind of lay off risk. Like if they have a lot of people in Maryland betting on the Ravens, as long as they're playing against Buffalo in week 1, as long as a lot of people in New York are betting against for Buffalo, like they can kind of balance the books across those states.
yeah,
Um, and also nationally with all the other books. But like a daily fantasy company, if they're trying to run a contest, it's run within that state. And so if there's not enough people, like if you're trying to create one in South Dakota and there's only so many people in South Dakota that want to play daily fantasy sports that day, like you don't have enough people. Or if the problem with Wager in Tennessee is they were only licensed in Tennessee at the time. They are peer to peer, so they had to find someone to be on the other side of every bet. They
yeah,
didn't have like a clearinghouse or some market maker. If like Sport Trade in Jersey, they have major investors that will match trades, right? Like they're market creators, right? Market makers. Um, the peer to peer doesn't work if they don't have enough people to take the other side of bets. So opening it up nationally would allow maybe some of the peer to peer companies or some daily fantasy companies to really grow and thrive. And I think that'd be very interesting.
I love it.
Plus, it'd be
So,
great to have it in Texas and California and these massive sports states that don't currently have sports.
hopefully. So, how do you leverage content marketing to educate potential users?
We haven't a lot, but we'd like to this year, right? I
Yeah,
think we think kind of the best marketing we could have is through people that have trusted audiences, right? So, like, I love Matthew Berry. I met him and we played
yes,
fantasy against him in 1 year. He's a great guy, but like, he's got a million followers, right? Like, and it's hard when you're that big to really engage with your users. Whereas, like, there's a lot of content creators that I read much more often now because when I comment on their stuff on Twitter, they comment back because I'm one of only, 500 people that commented or something. So I feel a relationship with them. I feel a sense of trust. And I, because I'm consuming their content more often, I I understand their thought process and I trust what they're doing. So if they recommend, "Hey, I've got this app, I've tried it out, it's better vision, it's made my life easier," I'm more likely to say, "Oh yeah, I'll try that out." Whereas like one, if we try to get Matthew Berry, we could never afford him. He'd be very expensive because of his audience. But also, like, do you have that sense of trust with him? Like,
Yeah.
or would you think, "Oh, he's getting paid for that?" Like if LeBron James is like, "Yeah, download Better Vision," like people aren't like he's not using it. But if Carla or Iggy or JC or somebody from Sports Affiliation Network's like, "Hey, I'm using this. You should check it out." Like, your audience is going to be like, "I
Of
trust
course.
these people. I tune in all the time. I believe them. They're not just selling this because Brett's paying them."
It's a word of mouth, definitely.
Yeah.
So, where do you see Better Vision in 5 years, and how might the platform evolve?
Ooh, in 5 years, I'm hoping that we have the what we have planned for this fall, which is the props odds comparison tool that'll be live, the parlay odds comparison tool that'll be live, and then hopefully our hedging, our arbitrage identifier will be good in the next few years. Adding a couple more partners to get CBS and some others that so
Nice.
almost any account you could have in sports, we'd have. Bring in the content. So now personalized content across platforms, and then right access. So now you can actually manage your teams from Better Vision. And I think the right access and the content are kind of go hand in hand because for the companies to give us that ability, because that takes people off of using their app, right? Well,
Yeah.
most of them, they want you on their app because they make money through content, right? Like they have writers, they write that content, they sell ads based on the users. So if we can put that content in front of more people, then maybe they'll give us right access. So that's the goal. Hopefully it's millions of users um and continuing to grow and add more features based on customer feedback,
I love it, love it, love it. So, just like I said, sponsor me and I'll get you there. So,
okay, deal.
so Brett, I really don't want to like finish our conversation because you're such an amazing person to just sit and talk with, and you have so much knowledge, and I am really honored to have you tonight on the show, and I cannot wait to see you at the expo.
Yeah.
Um, so, a couple more questions. How many years have you been at the expo? Is this your first year, or
This
you've been there before?
this is my third year. So
Your third year. That's awesome. That's my
2023
fourth.
was our first, and yeah, we've been ever since.
That's amazing. I cannot wait to see you. I cannot wait to see your son as well
Yeah,
this year. And I'm going to get him hooked up definitely for the show.
yeah.
That would be an honor for me as well. So before we end up with the show, I always ask that question. If you have a secret that you never told anybody before, or something that maybe happened at a young age, but you never spoke of, and you would like to say it today in front of me and our guest at the Game Changers. What would that be?
Um, I don't have a lot of secrets. I did a lot of dumb things when I was little, but I've told those stories before. So like, I'm trying to think of a good one that I haven't really told or um hmm I we used to sneak out a lot at night. We'd have little sleepovers and we'd sneak out and meet up with young ladies, and have some drinks out in the woods or whatever. But I don't know. I can't think of anything good that we have that I've never told anybody before. Yeah, pretty open and honest. So I don't know.
An open book, huh? That's good. I love that. So, Brett, before we wrap up, Can you let our listeners know how they can connect with you online and stay updated with your work?
Yeah, I would say go to www.bettervision.us. From there, you can get a link to download the app, or you can read about like what the app does. Go to the App Store or Google Play and search Better Vision, Bettor Vision. And then you can follow me on Twitter. It's RBL underscore leader underscore 01. Um, and yeah, would love to engage there and talk to you some more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I really appreciate your time. And I cannot wait to see you next week, hopefully.
Yeah,
So,
drive safe tonight.
yes, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of The Game Changers. I hope today's conversation gave you a fresh perspective, not just on football, fantasy football, but on the game of life. Mark your calendar. Disco, aka Big Draft Energy, returns as my featured guest next Wednesday. You won't want to miss that next week. A big thank you for Iggy tonight for his behind the scene magic, and to the powerhouse team of TSA for making this platform possible. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social media. Stay connected and be part of the Sports Affiliation, a community where every fan, thinker, and change maker belongs. Until next time, keep challenging the game and making your mark. This is Carla and Brett signing off. I wish you a pleasant evening. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.